Hello everybody and welcome to the Kay channel. This is Kay Kritiques, a segment where we discuss all things South African television. So if that's the type of content you enjoy, then click on the subscribe button, like this video and turn on the post notifications. As you can tell by the title of today's video, we are talking about the newest show on Netflix, Miseducation Season 1. Miseducation centers around Mbali, a young lady who comes from a rich family. She's an it girl and she's very popular on social media, but her circumstances quickly turn around when her mother, Brenda Ntlapo, is found to be corrupt, and she abused her power as a minister to steal grant monies, and this story goes viral. Wanting to escape the humiliation, Mbali decides she wants to leave Wits University to stay below the radar in an unknown varsity called Grahamstown University in the town of Makhanda, which was previously known as Grahamstown. This series had a lot of plot points, a lot of things that need to be discussed. A lot happened in this season. I can't actually believe that it was only 6 episodes, the way it was so packed with drama, storylines, comic relief. So I feel like we need to go through it in bite-sized pieces. I'm gonna go through it in sections. So it's gonna be the need or the want to fit in, bullying and abuse. It's going to be relationships and friendships, sexuality and financial struggles. And then we will also be discussing the biggest plot point of the season, which is the elections. Without any further ado, let us get into it. The need or the want to fit in. As humans, we are social creatures. We are creatures that depend on relationship. We cannot survive without relationships. We cannot survive in an isolated state. Not necessarily romantic relationships. We need to be in constant relationship with other human beings in order to be able to function. It is understandable that in a new area where you don't know anybody, you would want to have friends, fit in and be part of a bigger group, right? But Mbali, as we have established, she was an it girl. She was very popular, and also the money that her family had also played a hand in that. But now all of that has been stripped away. She doesn't want to be known as Brenda Ntlapo's daughter. She just wants to be known as Mbali. She is hiding the fact that her mother is the minister, because that could potentially ruin any type of relationships that she will try to form in this new space. People do eventually find out that her mother is the one who stole the grant money, and she did even more atrocious things. So Mbali wants to fit in. She wants to basically recreate the life that she had in Johannesburg, but now she's an outcast. She's at the bottom of the social hierarchy. How does she want to do that now? She wants to be like Raisa. Raisa is a YouTuber, content creator. She is the it girl of Makhanda University. She hosts the dopest parties. She has the tea on everybody. Everybody wants to be close to her, wants to be her friend. So she now wants to get close to Raisa in order to be able to climb the social ladder. Raisa, obviously not wanting to associate herself with Mbali, denies her access to her party and doesn't want her anywhere near her. So now what does she do? She decides, you know what, I think dating a hot Olympian who is Sivu Levine. Sivu Levine is the it boy. He's the captain of the rowing team. He is the varsity heartthrob. He is the guy that everybody wants to be seen with. He's the guy that everybody wants to be with. And he is the main love interest of our story. So she decides, you know what, he's very famous. He even went to the Olympics, won a bronze medal. So I want to date him, and that will help me be in good standing with all of these people, right? We also have Ujunya. Now Ujunya is painted as this nerdy, geeky, goofy kid who just wants to fit in, looks up to Sivu and wants to be like Sivu. wants to get the girls, wants to get the fame, the popularity, and just be an it boy as well. So he then tries to join the rowing team in order to be closer to Sivu because he admires Sivu as well. We will get into Junior's story a little bit later. So Mbali actually gains access to Raisa's party. There was an altercation between her and another guy. Sivu comes to her defense and breaks his arm. When he breaks his arm, he can no longer participate in the rowing competitions because they use their arms predominantly. Or his position of being captain of the rowing team has been taken away as well. So I feel like his identity was firmly rooted in him being part of the rowing team, him being captain of the rowing team, him going to the Olympics and winning this bronze medal. So when he breaks his arm, he no longer fits in, he no longer belongs, and now he's starting to question, who am I? Who am I outside of the sport that I've made my entire life? Like, he didn't even know what he liked to do other than rowing. So he also now is trying to find himself because now he realizes that the thing that I've based who I am on can be easily taken away from me. Sivu keeps trying to force himself attending rowing practices even though he has a broken arm, trying to pump up the team, but he no longer fits into that crowd, which is why it was so easy for Mbali to actually convince him to run for the SRC. Now, moving on, the bullying and the abuse under the sector, a lot happened. These are things that do happen in our everyday lives. Like I said, we were gonna get back to Junior. So Junior joins the rowing team. So he's one of the only black recruits who wants to join the rowing team. And now they are going through initiation. Sivu is, I think, the only black guy on the rowing team as well. So they wanted to do an old initiation practice that has been cancelled by the coach, where the coach was like, y'all cannot do this anymore. And the white guys basically single out Junior, who is the only black recruit, put him in a bin full of dirt and feces, lock him inside and spin him around while they're laughing and goading him. Now, this might not have been an active or an outward act of racism, but it does have elements of racism in it. Like in sports, you will see this, especially in sports that are quote unquote white people sports, where there's not a lot of black people in the sports. You will see it in your squash, rowing, rugby. You will see it in your tennis, swimming. Sports that are not only meant for white people. I'm not saying they're only meant for white people, but in the past, these are the sports that were predominantly played by white people. So in those areas, you will see small things like they will not want to say your name. They're going to give you a nickname. They're going to give you a nickname, a white sounding name. Like, let's say your name is Magaxole. I'm just making an example. Your name is Magaxole. They're going to call you Max. You have to learn a certain language in order to be able to be part of conversations, in order to be able to be accepted. You have to behave a certain way. You have to sort of hide your blackness, where you start behaving or emulating their culture instead of your own. Like, it's those little things. They're not racist. Like, if you look at these isolated incidences, they're not particularly racist, but they carry elements of racism in it. So that's what happened. And the fact that they singled out the only black child, Sivu tries to stop them, but obviously he also wants to fit in with the friends, so he doesn't actually do anything, and they abuse and bully Junior. Caesar and Jay. Now listen, Caesar Mokoena is our current SRC president, and he is running again in the election. He is an undercover homosexual. Like, he doesn't want people knowing that he's homosexual. I actually don't know if he identifies as bisexual or homosexual, but I'm just gonna assume for this review that he is homosexual. but he is hiding it. He doesn't want people to know, so he is on the DL. Him and Jayshan, who is our main character as well, they go on a date. So with Jayshan, I actually forgot to include him in the wanting to fit in part, where he hides the fact that he is gay from his family in order to try and fit in with his family. So his family doesn't know that he's gay, so the only place where he's able to express himself and fully be himself is at university after his parents drop him off. So him and Caesar go on this date, and Caesar wanted to have sex with Jay, but Jay said, no, this doesn't feel right. Caesar then attacks him, which is another thing we want to speak on, is gender-based violence, but not only gender-based violence, just physical assault, physical abuse as a whole. I don't think many universities actually take the matter of physical violence and GBV very seriously. You can go and report, but these cases most of the time never go anywhere unless it's serious or it gets media attention. Caesar threatened Jay to not tell anybody. It's like, firstly, nobody's gonna take me seriously, but also this guy threatened me. And that is the reality for many people in the LGBTQ community. There is a lot of abuse that goes on in this community that is not I feel like that is not spoken about enough, because it's two men. People are just like, oh, it's a man, how can it be abuse? They were just fighting, or they were in an altercation, or why didn't you fight back? And we even see this where in real life, Mohale claimed that Usomizi sexually assaulted him and people made fun of it. Nobody took it seriously, right? And then finally we have Natalie. Natalie, now you might be thinking, when did Natalie get abused? It's an abuse of power thing, right? Natalie is Sivu's sister. She feels like she's the black sheep of the family. She feels like an outsider in her family. So she kind of seeks validation on the outside from other people. She wanted to be Mbali's friend because they had went to high school together, chasing after Mbali, wanting that validation from her. But also now she's also discovering herself, which I will talk about under sexuality, where she was finding herself. She was experimenting. So then she gets involved with a lecturer, Van Heerden. Now, this is another thing that happens quite a lot in universities, where there's a student and lecturer relationships. Those are not allowed because it is an abuse of power. The university doesn't want a lawsuit where you are now accused of assaulting a student and threatening them that if you don't want to fail, then you're going to do this to me and whatnot. The situation with this, where Van Heerden took pictures of Natalie naked, as much as that was consensual, she's the one who asked him to. But the fact that now he has her pictures of her naked that he could post online, that he could broadcast throughout the whole university, you know, it's also giving an element of revenge porn kind of. So it's just a lot. You as a lecturer, as somebody in authority, as somebody in power, can have a relationship with a student. There's just going to be a student imbalance. There's always going to be that imbalance of you have the upper hand, you are in authority, and you have more power, and it is an abuse of power. A person will be afraid to leave because they don't want to ruin their academic career, so they might hang on to the relationship longer than they should. Which brings us to the next point, which is relationships and friendships. First and foremost, I would like to say Mbali is not a good friend to any of her friends. So Mbali and Jay form a relationship during orientation week. They hit it off, they get close to one another, and they were literally day ones. They were riding with each other, they were with each other through thick and thin. And I do believe that she actually developed beautiful relationships with both Natalie and Jay. With Jay, they had a really authentic, organic relationship, but Mbali actually used Natalie in order to get closer to Sivu. So Sivu and Natalie are siblings, and Mbali used Natalie to try and get closer to Sivu. If I'm around your sister, I can get inside information on you. I can come around your house without it being suspicious, so that I can get closer to the guy, right? And then you have the other relationships, like the romantic relationships. So Mbali has been wanting Usivu this whole time in order to try and gain popularity. And then you have Ujay and Utado. Jay and Utado, I was rooting for them, which we will get into later. Let me just say, when you're in university, you're in your late teens, you're in your early 20s, relationships are messy. That is the time where you are finding yourself learning what you like, learning what you don't like, learning your red flags, learning your pet peeves, basically learning what is an ideal partner for you. So relationships in your 20s, relationships in your late teens, in varsity especially, messy. Like, they're never clean. There's a lot of heartbreak that's gonna happen. You're gonna have your first love. You're gonna experience some things. Like with Natalie, you might be now finding yourself sexually. You might now be venturing into the space of being physically intimate with somebody, learning what you like, learning what you don't like. It's a lot. Like, relationships in your 20s, as much as you will have umgowo and all of that, but it also should be fun. Like, you should have fun while doing it. Jay and Utado. Jay had been through what he went through with Caesar, but not only that, he had been, I would say, used or viewed sexually, where he's just hooking up because he's been hurt in the past. So he's just like, you know what, we're going to put emotions aside because they're just going to break my heart anyway. So let's just put the emotions aside and just focus on the sex aspect, where it's just hooking up and we're just effing the whole time. But then Tato comes and he's like, no, I want real love. I still believe in true love, and I want to find my person. I want that Connie and Shona love that transcends death, you know. And he basically broke Jay's walls down bit by bit, to a point where Jay actually felt valued, and I would say for the first time in a healthy relationship, which I feel is why he ended up sabotaging the relationship. Like, you know, when you're in a relationship where you're like, this is too good to be true, this is too good to be true, this cannot be happening to me. So you try and find things that are wrong, you're trying to poke holes, you're trying to find a problem when there isn't a problem, and you end up self-sabotaging because you do not believe that such a good thing could happen to you. Sexuality was discussed and explored so beautifully in this series. I am repeating it again. I cannot believe that this series or this season was only 6 episodes. I cannot believe it. So we have Ujay Notado. Jay, as we've established, he is gay. Now we discover that Utado is actually transsexual and he identifies as a man. So Ujay has a problem with that. Like, why didn't you tell me? I'm authentic, I'm myself, and I just feel like if you had told me, maybe things would be different. I understand where Jay was coming from, where it's like, okay, I would have liked to have known that from the get-go. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't have dated you because of that. You know, I would have dated you, but I would have liked to know. So I think maybe it's also just a trust thing of, you weren't very honest with me, you lied to me. But then at the same time, for me, it's like, if he's treating you right and he actually opened up to you, you didn't find out and then he's like, oh, I didn't mean to lie to you. He came to you and he's like, I have to tell you something. Because Jay has been outwardly saying this whole time, oh, I would never out anybody, I would never ever force somebody to come out to me and this and that. But when Tato actually felt comfortable enough to reveal this information, he blew it and he did regret it, but the pride didn't allow him to actually go and apologized to Tato, and that ruined their relationship. So I don't see what the problem was. I don't think they should have broken up, and I feel like Jay could have handled that a bit better. But that is just my opinion. For me, Usiza being homosexual and being undercover, like being in the closet and not coming out, totally fine with that. You do not owe anybody an explanation. Like, I don't go around saying, okay, I would just like to alert everybody that I am a heterosexual woman. I identify as a straight woman. I don't go around saying that. So I wouldn't say, hey, you need to tell me your sexuality. The problem comes in when he is now homophobic, which is actually a reality. It is a reality in this country. Like, there are people out there who are gay but are homophobic, transphobic. Like, why? So I think maybe it's an internalized hatred thing where he hates the fact that he's gay, or maybe in his family, maybe they're staunch Christians, maybe they look down on the LGBTQ community, and he internalized that. Even though he's gay, he also now, because of being taught these things from a very young age, he internally hates himself for being gay because he feels as if being gay is wrong. So then he projects that onto Jay and whoever. So I think maybe I can give him grace in that sense, that maybe it's how he was raised. But also at the same time, it's like Jay also is raised and he's hiding from his family that he is gay, but he doesn't go around being homophobic to other people. I mean, we all experience life through different lenses, so I'm not going to say that Caesar should have behaved like Jay, but just don't be homophobic. Caesar, he's on my hit list because we don't like him. He's abusive and he's homophobic. So two things that are not going well for him. He was also kind of sort of just a misogynist, but we're not going to talk about that in this video. Otherwise, we're going to talk for an hour. Then we have Natalie. Like I said, she was finding herself and trying to discover who she is, what she likes physically, intimately. Mbali convinces her to sleep with Junior before sleeping with Van Heerden. And I liked the way this played out. It might have been awkward a bit, but I liked that they addressed the issue of consent. Consent is so very important in all aspects of life. Consent can be withdrawn at any time. If somebody says no, if somebody says stop, if somebody says I don't like this, if somebody says I don't want to do this, you do not coerce them, you do not force them, you do not sexually assault somebody. No means no. No does not mean convince the person. No does not mean force yourself on the person. No means no. And last but not least, the election. So the election is basically the source of all the plot points that happen in the story. So we have three candidates, Caesar, Mubarak, and Sivu. But Mubarak is not really any competition. He's just a conspiracy theorist and nobody takes him seriously. So the real competition is between Caesar and Usivu. But Usivu, I don't think he really is into these elections. It's just that Mbali is the one self-appointed campaign manager, and she's literally kind of sort of just forcing him to go through with it, working behind the scenes, lying, manipulating and cheating, because she's trying to use this to gain Sivu's favor, but at the same time she's using this to gain popularity, which all goes back to her wanting to fit in. So she is basically running for the elections, but Sivu is the face. These elections are brought up because of the fees must fall movement. So the university decides that they're going to increase fees, and we see Mbali's roommate Uapiwe be affected by this. We also see her hustling, working part-time. Even Jay has a student Uber, Stuba. To make an extra buck, Apiwe is working at a bar at night while studying. Her father does the field work at the university, so they don't really have a lot of money to pay for the fees, which is a big plight for a lot of South African students all across the country. People simply cannot afford to send kids to school for 4 years. No matter how much you plan in the 18 years that you have to save for your child, it's not going to be enough. University is expensive. You can never fully budget for your child's university experience unless you are privileged, which not a lot of South Africans have the privilege of doing. It's not that they are bad parents, it's just that the circumstances are never in the favor of the working class. Caesar wants to be the one to handle this fees issue. So there was an app that was created for the students to be able to vote for who they want to be the president. And Mbali, seeing that Sivu is about to lose because of the Junior story. So Junior goes on Raisa's podcast on YouTube to spill the beans and say, I was attacked, I was racially profiled, and I was under attack, and Sivu Levine didn't do anything. So I don't think that people should vote for Sivu Levine because he's a bully. She then takes a USB that Jay sells to students to get their laptops to crash, but she forgets the USB in the server room. So then Jay catches trouble for that. And then also now, because the app is down, they decide to hold a manual vote. What does Mbali do? She then goes and rigs the ballots. She goes and prints the ballots so that Sivu wins, and it is found out because they didn't burn the evidence fully, so they were caught. And who gets into trouble for this? Sivu. So Mbali is not getting into trouble for any of these things. And one thing about Mbali, she's gonna protect her own buttocks. She's not gonna out herself. She's not gonna go and come clean. Because now Sivu and Jay are suspended. Now it gets even worse when Usivu finds out that it's Mbali who caused all of this. They were about to be in a relationship, like they were dating, taking things slow. Sivu finds out about this. Mbali continues lying to his face about it. He ghosts her. Natalie goes to Mbali like, Mbali, I'm having trouble. My parents found out about Van Heerden, and Sivu now knows about the burning of the ballot, and it comes out that Mbali actually used Natalie in order to get closer to Sivu. And so literally all the relationships that she formed and all of her friendships were down the drain. All of them are ruined. Her friendship with Jay, her friendship with Natalie, her relationship with Usivu. They didn't win the election because it was found out that the ballot was rigged. So it was just a whole mess, because in the end, all the things that she did amounted to nothing. And that was season 1 of Miseducation. What are my thoughts on the show? I thoroughly enjoyed this season. I enjoyed Miseducation, and I would definitely be tuning into season 2. I do hope that they release it soon and don't leave us hanging. 6 episodes is too short. I feel like they could have had maybe 10 episodes or at least 8 episodes, but I did like that it was straight to the point. There was no filler episodes. It was quick paced. Everything was just on point. I have no complaints whatsoever. The only thing that I will say is that Mbali, as our main character, I don't think that she's redeemable. I think she's irredeemable, but I am excited to see how they're gonna redeem her character, because we are not rooting for her at all. With Mbali, she was literally doing everything for her selfish gain, forming relationships and backstabbing her own friends, lying, manipulating, cheating, just for popularity. I don't think Sivu and Mbali should be in a relationship in season 2. I don't think they should be in a relationship at all. I would give this season an 8 out of 10. I do feel like maybe they could have made Mbali a redeemable character and more likable. And I wish they had developed Jay and Tato's story more. But we'll see in season 2. Season 2, I would like to see how Mbali is going to make up for everything. Her mom did come and pay the dean, so maybe everybody's not going to be suspended, but obviously everybody's going to be angry at her. I want to see the new challenges. What challenge are they going to be facing in season 2? Maybe they're going to be facing the challenge that Caesar is now the SRC president, and they're going to be trying to expose him for being abusive, being homophobic, and also being selfish, because he had the chance to say, okay, the fees are not going to be raised, but he didn't take that opportunity. He used the opportunity to get himself in the position of being president again. So I want to see if Apiwe is going to expose him. I want Sivu to find himself outside of being SRC, being a rowing captain, find himself and his identity. And I hope that his identity is not going to be rooted in another sport without Mbali or Pearl or his parents or Natalie or whoever telling him what to do. And I also want to know more about Apiwe's story. Why is she hiding her dad? Because she doesn't want anybody to know that her dad actually works at the university. But yeah, guys, that is Miseducation season 1. Please do make sure that you like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I will see you guys in the next video.